to Biology Made Easy. We are still considering various aspects of biodiversity and specifically looking at how biodiversity can be conserved when we see to it that we check foreign species being put into a habitat. Well, the disastrous nature that a foreign species can cause a habitat. If today is the first day you are encountering our channel, please do subscribe and give us your likes. Now, a foreign species has many other names: alien species, exotic species, introduced species, meaning the same thing as taking one species from an ecosystem or a habitat and putting it into another habitat or ecosystem. So, a foreign species in a habitat, taken from this habitat, and you know it shouldn't be only one, it should be male and female to cause trouble, and put into this habitat. This species in that habitat is known as an introduced species. If this species in this habitat go well, gets used to the environment, fits in nicely, it becomes a naturalized species. But with time, if this naturalized species becomes a species that is causing trouble, disturbing the ecosystem, it can be an invasive species. So today, we want to look at why a foreign species can be invasive and very disastrous. Well, every ecosystem is balanced. You have this ecosystem, is balanced, is maintained, it has various species. The various species are adapted to live in it, no trouble. This ecosystem too. So every ecosystem is balanced and maintained. And every species in the ecosystem or habitat has its trophic levels. You know, trophic level is the same as feeding levels. The feeding level, we are talking about this species, let's say termite, it has the organisms it feeds on and the organisms that feed on it. For instance, the termite can feed on maize plants that are decomposing, and the termite also serve as food for lizards. Then every species in a habitat or ecosystem has its niche. A niche is the place that an organism stays and its function or role. So various organisms or species in an ecosystem live successfully because different organisms have different niches. For instance, if you take this organism as a lion, it has a place it stays, it has its den, and then it will go out and roam about and look for food. And so for a lion, the place it stays and where it functions will not be exactly at the same spot. But if you take a woodlouse, the place they stay and where they function is at the same place. So different species have different niches where they fit, and so the ecosystem is balanced. Then you have in each ecosystem, the various species have their natural enemies. The natural enemies, you have predators, parasites like bacteria, fungi, viruses. Every species has specific natural enemies that worry them, so to keep the population of the species in check. So it means that in every ecosystem, the species has its trophic level, it has its niche, it has its natural enemies in the ecosystem. Then we transfer the species from this habitat into that habitat, and it becomes invasive or destructive. Why? So here is this species in ecosystem A being transferred into ecosystem B, and what happens? The foreign species displaces other species, their trophic levels, their feeding levels. So this is a foreign species brought in, and this foreign species feeds on the third trophic level, and so it will take the food that is termites, it will also take grain weevil, and so if this foreign species comes in to upset the trophic level, taking in the termites and the grain weevils, and it eats voraciously, it's more than the natural species, it will come to a time that the natural species will be hungry because this one is taking more of its food, and it doesn't only come to displace its trophic level, even though it is feeding the foreign species, is not tasteful to be fed on by the others. So it's taking in food, itself is not being used as food, and so its population size increases. So that is one of the things that happens. Then it also displaces the niche of some species. Other small areas, they stay and perform various roles, so it will upset the niche of others. Then this foreign species that has come in has no natural enemies. It has no predators, it's not in competition with any others, and so its population size increases. Then foreign species comes into the habitat with its own parasites and diseases, viruses, bacteria, which is not known in the habitat that it's in, and so it comes in to affect the individuals in the habitat with its own diseases. So with time, the foreign species becomes invasive and population sizes increases and tries to destroy the ecosystem. Well, I have my personal experience. A friend brought me some huge garden snails that thrived in my garden, and with time another friend brought me other snails, smaller ones. With time, the huge garden snails disappeared, and later I noticed that they had gone into the ground most of the time dead, and this is some of their shells, and the other snails are still in the garden as to today. So the smaller snails came to take off the food, and the niches of these huge snails wiped them off. There are many examples of foreign species causing a lot of trouble in various ecosystems and habitats. And so the reason why that happens are these that have been enumerated, and it will be good not to transfer foreign species, one species into another different habitat, not really knowing the effects. Well, this is what we have for today. Thank you for coming along. Goodbye.